Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Papa Saw Shop. I'm Papa, and today I want to talk to you guys and gals um, about something that I hear all the time. And if you do a YouTube or an internet search for this, uh, you'll come up with a million hits on this subject. And the subject is, why does my chainsaw leak oil? Now, Now don't shut this off just yet, because we're going to get into it a little bit deeper. Okay, we're not just going to say, oh well, leaks oil, because that's just old chainsaws leak oil and blah blah blah. And I'm not going to tell you anything that's going to prevent your saw from ever leaking a drop of oil. Okay, some things happen. Okay, all saws are different. I've seen saws that are 20 years old, not leak a drop of oil. Brand new saw pours oil all over the damn place when you're done using it. You know, um, but there are a few things that will make a saw leak oil, and a lot of people just don't understand, and that's why it leaks. Is I got my hat all crooked here. See if I can straighten out my hat while I'm on camera. Doggone it, I should have done that before I came on here. Jeez. Sorry about that, y'all. Anyhow. anyhow. I'm done with the vainness here. So I'm going to run through what are the components of your oil pumping system. And I've got a little MS200 here that we're converting to an HP. And this thing, now it's been sitting here. It's pretty old saw, it's an original MS200, and it's been sitting here with about 3/4 of a tank of oil for, gosh, a few weeks anyway. I just checked it, and it's got oil right up to about here in the tank, and it, as you can see, is dry as a bone. It hasn't leaked anything. Okay, now again, I know new saws that can't do that. All right. So why? Why is it like that? How does it work? Okay. Well, first of all, let's go over the parts of your oil pump system. Okay. So when you put oil into the tank, all right, the first thing that oil hits is the filter. Okay. Put that up there. That filter is connected to a hose. Okay. And the hose comes out of the back, and I'm going to show you here in a second, and it goes to the pump. Okay, just like that. So that's where that goes, and then you've got this gear, and there's your pump. Let's just go ahead and pull this thing off this dirty old girl. All right, so now you can see where we're at. There's the pump right there, right here. All right, now this guy is called the worm gear. That worm gear goes inside this. All right, just like that. Fits right inside there. Oops. Now, as your clutch drum connects onto here, as it turns that worm gear, which in turn, I'll get this up here. You see that little gear in there? It turns that gear. And then that gear turns a shaft, and on this shaft there's a half moon on this shaft, so that shaft is round, and then on both sides of it it's flat, and so as it turns it just spins up oil. Okay, so it's just pulling up oil out of there. So the faster that gear turns, the more it spins up there. Now this up here, this is the adjustment screw. Okay, now basically all you're doing when you turn that adjustment screw, and I can turn it, I don't think you'll see it on the camera, but we'll try. But basically when you're turning that screw, all you're doing, I don't think you can see it, all you're doing is just pulling that gear closer. If you really look you can see it, but it's kind of blurry. But all you're doing is pulling that gear closer and farther away from the worm gear. Okay, So the closer it is to the worm gear, faster it's going to turn. Farther away from the worm gear, you're going to have a little gap in it. And so it takes a half second or so for it to catch the other from the worm gear to this gear. And it creates, it's dry in here today. So it basically just creates that gap in between the gears, and so it gives you half a second less of pumping, to which then slows down everything in here, and it slows down the volume of oil coming out. All right, so that's a pretty simple way of how these things work. There's not much to them. All right, this part here connects to this little rubber guy right here, and it's obviously got a hole right down here in this rubber. I don't think this will, sometimes these can be kind of a bear to get out of there if they've been in for a while, so we won't try it. But I'll turn that so you can see it. So the bottom of this little rubber guy right here has got a hole in it, and then it's got another hole that'll feed into this channel, which then feeds into the hole onto the bar. Okay, so that's how the oiling system works. All right, now here's an interesting thing that a lot of people don't know. All right, this is not sealed. All right, so if I were to tip this upside down and attach this hose to a can of oil up here and let it sit, this is going to start dripping. This is just a piece of metal pipe that goes through here. All right, so that kind of answers that age-old question. Why is my chainsaw leaking? All right, whether it's brand new or whether it's 30 years old, you can't see what that rod looks like. If there's a little chunk of dirt stuck in there, a piece of sand, if that little rod has just got just a little notch out of it, anything is going to let that oil, because as it sits, you can, well, here, I don't need to put that on here. As it sits, if the oil is sitting up here, all right, then theoretically, if you got a full tank of oil, it could push out of here. Or if you got, maybe this hose doesn't seal quite right, it could leak out of this hose. Oops. It could leak out of this hose right here. Or if you get a leak in that hose. Or if this isn't sealing tight to the case itself, it can leak out of there. So let's just say that all this is good. Okay. It's driving you crazy. You set your saw down and you come back a day or two later and go, man, I got to pull the oil again. What the, and you tear it apart, you clean everything off, and you say, okay, I'm going to leave it sit, I'm going to leave everything open, and I'm going to see where it's coming from, because this is driving me crazy. And you come back and it's covered in oil. You're like, all right, somebody done come out here and pour oil all over my saw just to mess with me. That's what's going on. Nope. Because there's one more component to the oil system. And nobody talks about this. And I don't know why. But I'm fixing to talk about it. All right? Now, before we talk about this little guy, I want to introduce you to some terminology. Thermal expansion. Okay? Now, before I show you this other component to the oiling system, we need to know about this thermal expansion. What is it? Okay, plain and simple, what thermal expansion is, if you take a plastic, let's say you take an old plastic pop bottle and you fill it up with water, and it's 80 degrees outside, and you put it out there in the driveway and you fill it plumb full, and then you put the cap on it, you leave it out there, for long, that thing's going to start getting distorted, right? It's going to start getting a little swelled. Why? It's not, is it turning into steam? Nope. Because when you go out there and you break your cap loose, there's no steam coming out of it, so it's not steam. It's called thermal expansion. Simply put, what thermal expansion is that every liquid on this earth, I don't care what kind of liquid it is, doesn't matter what it is, all has liquid molecules. As molecules get hot, they start to swell. Thermal expansion is when the whole tank of that, the whole body of that liquid as a whole starts to swell because of the molecules starting to swell. So all the little molecules are starting to swell up. As they swell up, the body of water gets bigger. The body of liquid gets bigger. Okay? As it cools, those molecules cool back down and they shrink back down. Okay? So that's what basically in a nutshell thermal expansion is. Thermal expansion happens with every liquid. Okay? Now, you know that we have a vent valve on the fuel tank. And that's because fuel has a higher thermal expansion rate than most other fluids. So we need to have something on there so that it's not building up pressure and pushing that fuel into the engine. Guess what? Oil has a thermal expansion also. It's a liquid. It will expand. It's very close to hot chain. You got the exhaust right back here. If it heats up at all, it's going to expand. That liquid is going to expand, and when it gets cool, it's going to cool back down. And so when you leave your saw sit for a day or two and you come back and you go, oh, there's oil all over it. What the heck? How'd that happen? Thermal expansion, my friends. Now, if you leave your saw sitting like this, okay, if you leave it sitting on the side, thermal expansion will happen. All right, it's just a fact. It's a fact of living on planet Earth. It's going to happen. What's going to happen is, well, doggone it, I sit right here. It is. What's going to happen is that you had this oil pump that was sitting upright, and the oil level in the tank was right about here. Okay, so it may, the thermal expansion may happen, and it may bubble up through here and come out here and drip down your saw. Could happen. Okay, now if you have the saw laying down, you've now put all of this down here. Now thermal expansion is going to happen with the help of gravity. Okay, because now you have thermal expansion happening and you have gravity pushing that fluid down. Okay, so your saw will definitely leak if you lay it down. Okay, there's a reason that they're built like this and they're not built to pick up like this. Okay, so that's a fact. It will leak if you set it down eventually, and some of them may take longer, but they will leak. All right. Now, how do we get rid of thermal expansion in the oil tank? Well, we do that by utilizing the last component of the oil tank system, this guy. Okay? Now, show you where this is. If you've got a 200, and all saws are going to have this to some extent, you're going to have it somewhere. It may not look exactly like this, but it'll be there somewhere. This guy, clean that dirt out. Right there it is. See it? See it right there? That is the vent hole for your oil tank. That prevents thermal expansion. All right, so if you look at this, see there? That's what it is. There's the back side of it. It's basically just a one-way valve. All right, and most of the time, if you shine a flashlight through there, you can kind of see through them. All right, and it's just because it's a tiny little valve in there, you know, so it's pretty sensitive to light. So a lot of times that little guy right there can be where it's plugged or it's just not working anymore. Now, you can replace these. I think it's pretty doggone tough to find. You might be able to find them online. Um, but if you can't, you go to our website, www.papashop01.com. Send me a message on the website there, and I can sure send you one for no matter what size you got. I'm sure we don't have them listed in the parts on there because there's so many shapes and sizes, but I can get you one. Okay. So, how you can prove that this is leaking or not? First of all, you always want to keep debris away from this. All right. Now, there's one thing that I do notice. The guys will say, "Oh, my oil tank is just leaking like crazy. The saw just leaks like crazy," and it could very well be that when you put this back on here, that you seen where I cleaned up all the gunk around there. A lot of times it just gets gunk piled in there, and if this thing can't breathe, well, now you have thermal expansion going on, and that oil is being pushed out of that oil pump because these are not a sealed pump. Liquid will come out of here. We've distinguished that. So one way is to constantly keep that thing clean. Little brake cleaner, squirt a little gas around it. Just anything to kind of break that stuff out. Now make sure that if you put something flammable, make sure you clean it off real good because you don't want to start a fire back here. But that should be an integral part of regular maintenance, is to pull that little guard off of there and check that guy behind there all the time. You should be checking that guy all the time. Now, the other obvious thing that I've seen a lot in saws is especially these caps that they got, that this cheesy little, I'm old school. I just like the screw in ones. It's got the the screwdriver thing on the front of it. You just cinch it in if you need to. But these things have a tendency. There's a little rubber O-ring in behind there, and those have a tendency to leak. And you can, I don't know if you can see on there, but this one's been sitting for a little bit without the cover. Let me see. Look at there. It's got a little bit of oil that's dripped off of that cap. Okay, so watch for that kind of stuff too. Now, if that cap is leaking, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It doesn't mean you got to go out and buy a $50 cap from Steel or whoever. A lot of times, like I say, there's just a, let me see if I can take this off without spilling oil all over. Yeah, there we go. We'll take this cap off and I'll show you here real quick. So right there, and if you've got a cap, you'll see it, but right there, you can kind of see it there. There's a rubber O-ring right there. And that thing will leak. Now, when these things go bad, what happens is that it'll start leaking down the middle. There's a little plunger down inside that thing, and that plunger will come loose, and then it starts leaking, and then you got to go buy an expensive damn cap. And I've noticed that aftermarket cap and OEM caps, there's very, very little difference. They either work or they don't work. And my advice is that if you go down to a store and you buy one, take your saw with you and put it on, and then test it. Make sure you got some fluid in there and test it and see. It's pretty disgusting. You get a brand new cap, take it out in the woods, put it on your saw, and that one leaks too. I've seen that happen. Doesn't matter, like I say, OEM or aftermarket. So anyway, that's about all I got for today. I just wanted to kind of go over. I had a guy that contacted me this morning and said, "Hey, my saw's leaking. What the heck?" And and he had it laying on its side, and I thought, I bet there's a lot of people that don't know that kind of stuff. So anyway, I hope that helps you out. Again, if you got any questions, leave me a comment down there in the comment section. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. I try to get at least one or two of these things out every week, and we do videos for amateurs as well as people that's been in it for as long as I have. So always informative. Got any questions? Need any parts? Want to check out an Old Goat custom chainsaw? Just run over to www.papashop01.com. And until next time, be careful out there. Happy motoring.